The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by the hosts, guests, callers, and advisors on Beyond the Headlines are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS, the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be represented in part or entirety without the express written consent of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.
Coming up tonight, Prime Minister Davis to address the nation this evening. Many are wondering if his address will cover the ongoing saga at BPL and those unbelievable overtime payments. You all saw them. They went viral last week that some staff made in just a 12-month period. Question tonight, is BPL hiring? Tensions high, and so are hopes for the safe return of a woman missing on the island of Eleuthera almost 1 week ago. We have the latest for you. And tonight, a crazy set of voice notes that have gone viral. The voice notes reportedly a man talking about his sexual assault on a woman. It's all straight ahead tonight. This is Beyond the Headlines. Good evening. I'm Shanique Miller. It's great to have you along this evening. Well, Prime Minister Davis would have been addressing the nation right now, but we got word just before airtime that that address has been pushed back to about 8:30 or so. Whenever it happens, we will go live. We will break from programming and go live to that address and then come back and talk. But I'll tell you this, many people feel as though the Prime Minister needs to be firm on this matter as it relates to BPL, that the Prime Minister needs to send a strong message. Listen, $20,000 a month, over $200,000. That's right, in a 12-month period for overtime. Overtime, PPL is the biggest game in town. I'll tell you, but they can't keep the lights on, that part. Well, before we hear from the Prime Minister later on tonight, I'm going to bring the panelists in, and we're going to talk about what is it the Prime Minister needs to say, his posture, what is it that the Bahamian people must hear from Prime Minister Davis this evening in the national address coming up in about 23 minutes or so. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines, and good evening, Leslie Miller. It's great to have you here. Howard Johnson, good evening to you.
Pleasure
Welcome
to
the show.
Good evening, Shanique. Good evening, Leslie. And good evening, Bahamas.
Gentlemen, good evening again. Gentlemen, we have seen, in fact, I just spoke with one of my colleagues, and he said, Shanique, the power is off where I'm at right now at home. What is it that the Prime Minister must? You all saw those, I mean, they caused you stumble where they're so shocking. The overtime payment, we ain't talking about the salary, the overtime payment that many people made in a year at BPL. Not many, in fact, forget that. Just a handful of people made in a year at BPL. Gentlemen, what is it that Prime Minister Philip Davis must make the Bahamian people to understand and must show the Bahamian people tonight?
Well, I guess I'll go first. Shanique, I think one of the main things that we need to hear from the Prime Minister, this has been going on now for almost 2 months, if not 2 months. The outages, long-standing outages, happening for hours and hours at a time. And I believe that the Bahamian people need to hear from the Prime Minister that after 2 months of severe disruptions to their electricity and power, you can't just ask for patience. We now need to see tangible financial relief and bill credits passed on to the Bahamian people, because if they don't do that, then you run the risk of being out of touch with the everyday struggles that Bahamians are going through, including these electricity woes.
Leslie, Howard says the Prime Minister must not only be very firm in whatever it is he's going to announce this evening, but that must also include real rebates, not $8 and change. I'm talking real rebates where people can exhale for the last 2 months.
But these are very difficult times for the Bahamian people. When you consider the fact that we were supposed to get a relief 6 months ago, and one or two situations happened at Clifton. I think these private partners, I don't know who they are, were then supplying BEC with electricity. The rates did go down appreciably, but for the last month it tripled. That's what people talk.
Yeah.
Why did it triple in the last month?
Yeah.
What caused that? People are very, very upset, but I think the Prime Minister has a lot to do and say tonight. First and foremost, how do you justify the outrageous overtime? You know, we had a board that was put in place in 2012. A young, wonderful lady named Ms. Sands was on that board. Eddie Dowell was on that board, among others, myself. And when we got to BEC in 2012, the overtime pay at that time, yearly, was $12.8 million. And the Prime Minister, who coincidentally just happened to be the Minister of Works. So he called Eddie, myself, on a few of the meetings, and said, listen, man, this is outrageous. We got all the information. I took him to Parliament and all. He said, this got to stop. And we went on a mission to stop the steal at BEC. Every month we did an analysis of the overtime in every department, especially Clifton and Blue Hills, where most of it is taken advantage of. And by the time we left, well, I can tell you why we left. By the time we left in the end of 2015, the election was on the horizon. And some of the ministers or whoever was there decided that this couldn't go no further. But in that short period of time, we went from 12.8 to 4.2 million.
A year?
A year. We just took it down. We had to let some fellas go. We had to force them to resign, give them a package and tell them they got to get lost because it was so outrageous. Now, the highest one we ever had was at Clifton. He was at $84,000 a year. And prior to us going there in 2012, he had already averaged 80,000 plus for the last 10 years he was there.
Leslie, is that exorbitant amount of overtime necessary? Now, you said you all at your time let some people go. Many say it's because of letting the most qualified and experienced BPL workers go that BPL finds itself stumbling. The Bahamian contingent of the BPL workers find themselves stumbling because they are ill-equipped to deal with these aged old equipment and facilities that are there, and obviously cannot move it forward in terms of modernizing the grid. Was that a mistake?
Listen, in 2000, the first I was appointed to the BEC board in 1987 when we got elected. My good friend and brother, Dr. Bernard J. Nottage, was the minister responsible. When we went to BEC, during that period, from 87 to 92, BEC put in brand new engines. BWSC out of Scandinavia put in 2 brand new engines that gave us overall capacity of some 80 megawatts of power. We had excess power and everything was running smoothly. And then we look at overtime to try to take it down. But there is a culture in BEC. I fought them all the time tooth and nail because the people who work for BEC, most of them believe that they own BEC. And that was my problem with them. They are the owners. Why would BEC salary be 5 times the amount of the other public servants?
Well, Leslie,
how do you justify it?
Leslie, we have discussed that before. I'll tell you.
How do you justify it?
But I'll tell you this though. Let's be fair. It is an area where high skilled and high risk is on the line.
Yes.
And whatever they need to be paid, they should. But they should know what they're doing.
Yes.
They should know if Chord A and Chord B go together and not doing foolishness. Howard, this real. This
same with water.
It's real on these streets.
But they were trained. They were trained and paid for by the Bahamian people. The Bahamian people sent them away to get trained.
Trained where? How?
They were trained. We sent them all over the place.
Listen,
they were trained in London. They were trained in the Caribbean.
We are going to hear,
in the US and every place else.
We have to move
they
this
were
forward.
trained.
I'll tell you, should this information about the overtime have been made public? And the reason I ask this is that the local union Congress leader, Belinda Wilson, says, man, what's up, man? BPL, how y'all slip like this and put this information out there on the streets? Take a listen.
Was there no slip?
Terms and conditions of an industrial agreement must be adhered to by both parties, the employer and the employees. So BPL does not have the authority to unilaterally implement a new policy, be it for overtime or any other policy, without consultation with the union. It is atrocious that employees' personal and private salaries and emoluments have been leaked to the public. But is it in an effort to threaten, coerce, intimidate, or pressure the workers at BPL? Or are you trying to pressure the BEWU at BPL? Well, as fellow trade unionists and workers in this country, we refuse to stand by idly.
Let the woman go sit down talking foolishness yet. Okay? The government has a mandate. The government has a duty to look out for the benefit of the majority of Bahamians. What the hell are you talking about? But you don't have a right. I took it to Parliament.
Listen to me.
I had a spreadsheet in Parliament.
Leslie.
And I didn't call no names, but I went down for each department and say, this is what they're getting. And I have the information here with me.
Leslie, I think she meant last week's expose. But I'll tell you this. We don't need to know what each person is making and their salary.
I wonder what she's making. Ask her what she's making. What's she getting? That's why she don't want to talk about it.
But
what's she getting?
But when the Bahamian people, first of all, you all got people,
And when last were they audited? Ask them when last she had audit.
When you all have the Bahamian people sweltering, you understand this?
Losing weight every damn night.
And taking $20,000+ a month home, you're flipping living, okay? So we have a right to know about your overtime.
Course, every
why is it that this overtime is being racked up in on that level? Howard, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Shanique, first of all, I was really taken aback and happy to see Miss Wilson in such a pious and priestly looking posture, right? And if only she could conduct herself like that all the time when she's doing union business. But I'm happy to see her with her nice pearls and everything. She looked so nice, you know. But anyway, getting back to this thing, Shanique, I really believe that these things should be transparent and the public should know what is going on as far as these exorbitant overtimes and salaries and stuff. But I don't think it should have been done in the way that it was. I agree with Mrs. Wilson that the way that it was done, it appeared to be as if someone from within management, and it had to come from within management because these facts and these figures were definitely concrete. So this isn't any and everybody.
Listen to me. If it's a cat fight, if it's a cat fight happening at the top levels, I'm happy whoever it is, open up the Pandora's box. I'm happy.
And I'm so happy that it happened. However, the reason why I'm saying I don't like how it happened for two reasons. One, it appears as if it was done maliciously with the effect of threatening and intimidating and silencing that other side of this argument, quote unquote, from saying what they have to say and speaking out. Number two, what it also demonstrated is the operational chaos that's going on in BPL.
But Howard, exactly. Wait a minute, Howard. But this is why we needed to know, and this is whoever it is, whoever the whistleblower was or is or are, excellent job. In fact, y'all should get that 20,000 because we need to know because obviously BPL is not being managed as it should be.
Exactly.
Now, last point. As far as operations are concerned, in the midst of all the chaos that's going on, this is why I didn't particularly like the manner. It's this. So now, the facts and figures that came out, right? This was accounting and human resources.
It was never refuted.
So no, and it can't be.
It was not refuted.
It can't be. But here's the thing. When you do that, you effectively make yourself a kamikaze suicide bomber because you are attacking yourself. You lifting up the veil on you.
I agree with you.
Accounting and human resources are tools of management in any business. So when you try to expose these people with all of the exorbitant overtime that they are making, you're exposing yourself. Accounting had to prepare all of these monies that were owed and allocated, and human resources and executives had to sign off on all of this overtime and stuff. And so when you throw this out there that these employees or union members are making all of this money, well, Kyle Wilson them didn't put the money in their own account. They didn't sign off on it themselves.
I tell you,
all should be jointly responsible. And all should be gone from the corporation.
Well,
All of them who signed on the dotted line for those that do you know what it is for one guy to take home $328,000 in 1 year?
Come on, hey.
And,
Yep,
and all
that's
our
it.
people that are suffering
It's
like hell.
egregious.
The fellas
Yeah.
on the dock, the mechanics, the other people who work in the government entities, who's
It's
struggling every
despicable,
day
Leslie.
to pay their
It's
mortgage.
despicable.
And you can
It
tell
is
me,
despicable.
we shouldn't say nothing about it because it ain't their business, it's their money.
Yeah.
It's our
I
money.
agree.
It is their
and in
money.
particular, when,
The public
when
treasury
the
means
impression,
that our money in that public
when the
treasury.
impression is the work is not being done, you don't know
Okay,
what
and
you're
the lights
doing.
off?
You're fumbling over and over each other and yourselves, and you're messing things up further at BPL. And we must not know whoever you
Yeah.
are that blew the whistle.
Could I give
Good.
you just one or two examples?
Go ahead.
A fella there, employee one, making $39,697 a year. His 3-year salary is $119,000. His 3-year overtime is $176,796.
What you?
His total for the 3 years pay is $294,000.
No.
Someone else, employee two, making 49. 3-year salary, 148. 3-year overtime, 241,896. Thousand.
Yep.
Another one, employee 8. Salary 54,000. 3-year salary 162. 3-year overtime 220,000. 3-year total pay 382,959. What you expect the people to do? What you expect them to do? It is physically impossible. When we did our analysis of BEC and we started to let some people go and downgrade, we had a forensic accounting assistance petitioner. It was physically impossible for those people to do the time that they had put on paper. I got it right here. That cannot be right.
I tell you,
in
they-
no orderly society, you could have one group being at the top of the ladder and the rest struggling, and you got the same capabilities. And I said, and I will say it until I leave this earth.
Let's look at these overtimes.
BEC, water and sewage, the telco, has financially ruined our country over the last 50 years. Whether you want to say it or not, the figures speak for themselves.
Leslie, I'll tell you, the overtime is wild because you're right. Why would they be required to work more hours than they actually are officially on the clock for?
Listen,
why?
they-
But I feel as though in such high risk areas, and if you are skilled sufficiently to be able to carry out this duty, you should be rewarded accordingly.
But
No,
Shanique, what
but-
can
but
three
listen, hey,
employees...
just one second.
One second,
You
one second,
want to hear
Leslie, let
something?
Howard-
One of the fellas who involved in what is going on now,
Yes.
one employee, BEC sent him on a course for 2 weeks. Was it in the Bahamas in Europe? He comes back from the course after 2 weeks. And his overtime was $31,842.44. And he was off for 2 weeks. Figure that one out.
Hold on.
You hear me yet?
You're saying for the 2 weeks he was
2
training.
weeks. He was away.
He was away.
Away, 2
And
weeks.
what is his overtime in those 2 weeks?
$31,000 when he came back. That's what he collected. You figure it out.
I will talk. Who in charge of BPL? Because
Figure it out.
I will have a nice talk tomorrow. Go ahead, Howard.
See, Shanique, here's my thing, right? I don't care how skilled you are. I don't care what degrees and certifications you have. There is no justifiable way
Exactly.
on God's green earth that 3 employees should make almost $750,000 in 1 year.
Figure it out.
You don't have, and then we have the evidence that that didn't prove fruitful because the lights still going off. There's no tangible proof that the exorbitant amounts of monies that were made corresponded with the value that was produced for the Bahamian people. So there's no justification. And 3 employees, please tell me what 3 people you know. 3 people you know need to make that much money to make a public utility corporation better.
The three
and then
at
you need to see the results.
The 3 at
And we still don't
BPL who
have the
kept
results.
having it approved or every month for the last 12 months. Those 3, obviously. I want to hear what the Prime Minister has to say tonight.
Are you all aware that BEC legacy debt is over $500 million on the backs of the Bahamian people?
No surprise.
$500 million.
Yeah.
And guess what? People who was in BEC, I know some of them right now who retired. Do you know some of them taking home over $100,000 a year? in pension, the highest pension in this country, higher than the Prime Minister. You don't hear me yet?
Leslie and
Stay right
Howard,
there.
I'll tell you once again, you all, this is Beyond the Headlines. The Prime Minister is expected to address the nation in about 6 minutes. So in that time, gentlemen, I want to bring your attention to something that is quite troubling, that's kind of really taking shape, or playing out rather, on the island of Eleuthera. A 34-year-old woman, Katrina Kelly, was last seen leaving her residence on Tuesday evening, just about a week ago, by family members to conduct a business transaction for her rental car company. Kelly's disappearance now, tonight, she's not been seen since then, is sending shockwaves throughout Eleuthera. In particular, her family, who is still hopeful that they can find their loved one safe and sound. But as the days go by, faith in that reality seems to be waning. The sister spoke with Eyewitness News over the weekend, and her words were hard to come by.
We just want to let the community know we love her, and we just want to. So if anybody see her, hear from her, a last, say her, a notification, anything, please let us know. Let someone know. Even if they fall, let somebody know who know her.
Howard, and Leslie, that's so troubling to hear. I first saw it last week, and I reached out to some people in Eleuthera. I'm like, is this real? Because I had not seen anything, police missing person bulletin at that time. And they said, yes, it is. And it's quite worrisome, Howard. You are from Eleuthera, not sure if you know the individual, but it's worrisome of what's happening there right now.
Yeah, Shanique, I don't know the individual personally, but of course I know the family. If you don't know someone personally, Eleuthera is small enough that you know somebody they are related to. And, I was born in the Levy Medical Center in Governor's Abbey, Eleuthera, Shanique, and I spent the first 20 years, almost 20 years of my life on Eleuthera, okay, before I left to go to COB in Nassau. And Shanique, I am telling you, Eleuthera is becoming unrecognizable with some of the things that have been taking place there over the last several years. I mean, we've had murders in Bryland. We've had shootings in Central Eleuthera. We've had shootings in South Eleuthera. And I also understand that there was a shooting in Greencastle last night. I can't confirm that, but I heard that there was as well.
Guys,
but
I don't know
speaking
if
to this
Howard
lady,
can hear me.
this
Please
is
bring
tragic.
me back on the mic
so.
and shut him down. I have to go now to introduce to a break and introduce the national address. And Howard is right, Leslie. There was a shooting in Greencastle, Eleuthera. That place is troubled. Continues to have shootings and that kind of thing. Greencastle, that is. And so Eleuthera, while progress is happening in terms of all the various businesses and investments, this is now accompanying it, so that must be addressed. When we come back after this break, we're going to go straight to the Prime Minister's national address. Prime Minister Philip Davis set to address the nation in about a minute and a half. This is Beyond the Headlines. We're back after this.
Hey, it's your boy Charlie Bahama here at Superwash, Superwash's newest spokesmodel, and I'm here to tell you about Superwash's large capacity washers and dryers for all your big loads.
I know I see that Charlie Banana coming here just now.
Luckily it's also big enough for me to hide it.
I thought he was right over here where these large capacity washer and dryers is. They're big enough now to handle your big loads, Yeah, like your comfort on your blanket. But just look at us. Somebody forget to turn on the dryer. Oh, stop! Help! You hear something? Yeah, that's the sound of clean. Superwash washes you, presses you, and entertains you 24/7.
Did you know that when you shop at cbsbahamas.com, you can see directly into our vendors' warehouses? What that means is even if we only have a dozen of an item available in store, you can order virtually as many as you want directly from our vendors and have it delivered to your doorstep in just 10 to 14 days. You don't have to worry about shipping, imports, duties, or any of the hard stuff. Our backorder program is unique and it's only at cbsbahamas.com.
My fellow Bahamians, good evening. In October 2022, when I first spoke to you in detail about BPL, I did not leave the harsh reality of the state of our electricity infrastructure and the hundreds of millions needed to fix our aging system to someone else. I came before you myself because the buck stops with me. Ever since, I've been honest about the scale of this challenge. In April of 2025, I stood in the House of Assembly and gave this country the most complete accounting of our energy system that any government had ever given. I did not soften it then, and I will not soften it now. I told the nation that we had inherited a power grid and a generation system on life support, barely hanging on. BPL was carrying more than $500 million of debt and another $100 million in unfunded pension obligations, $600 million in total on the shoulders of a company that could not pay for its own repairs. Engineers told us we needed $500 million in critical upgrades to prevent a complete failure of our electrical infrastructure. Not an inconvenience, a collapse. We were running 29 power stations across 17 islands. Different manufacturers, different eras, some engines so old that no one still makes the parts to fix them. More than 60% of the generation equipment in New Providence needed replacing. In the Family Islands, that number was 80%. And to keep the lights on at all, we rented engines for $40 million a year. Renting, money out the door, and not $1 of it buying an asset we would own at the end. My fellow Bahamians, the system we inherited was not designed for the country we have become. Some of the equipment and cables were installed and laid down pre-independence, and a lot of it is more than a generation old. Every government since has added to it. No government before us took the bold position to rebuild a system that was made for the 21st century, taking into account rising temperatures, more violent and destructive hurricanes, and an economy that is growing faster than the time needed to complete the upgrades. Big changes are underway. The country is still quite away from that reality. Tonight, I'm going to describe how we go from where we are now to a system that supports our families, businesses, and a better, bigger economy. The energy system is made up of two separate but connected parts: generation and transmission and distribution. Therefore, adding more generation does not by itself keep your lights on. Generation is the engine. Transmission and distribution are the poles, the wires, the substations, the transformers, and the cables that carry that power from the generators to your street and into your home. You can have every engine in the fleet running perfectly. And if an overhead or underground cable fails, or a transformer catches fire at a substation, the lights will go out. That is what happened on the 30th of July. A transformer failure at the Blue Hill substation took the whole island down. It was not a shortage of engines. An underground cable fault caused the fire at a critical transformer. With an overhead line fault, a crew can often see a fault. Underground, they cannot. They must trace it, section by section, street by street, sometimes by excavation. That is why that particular repair took days instead of hours. It is not an excuse. It is an explanation, because you are entitled to know why, although it does not ease the misery we all felt. These challenges are compounded by the global heat wave we have been experiencing because of El Nino. The demand on the system has broken our previous peak twice this season. Heat not only raises demand and increases the strain on the equipment, it accelerates its deterioration. We are operating an old system in a new climate reality, and we do this on a chain of islands in the path of an increasingly violent hurricane season, in a world where energy supply chains are strained and traditional short-term lead items have become long-term lead items, and long-term lead items have become longer-term lead items as governments around the world race to upgrade their energy infrastructure. This is our climate reality. This is our geographic reality. It is not a complaint. It is the terrain on which we are building. As I stated earlier, parts of the system were built before independence. It was built for a smaller population, a smaller economy, and a different climate. We achieved political independence more than 50 years ago. Now, energy security must become part of our economic independence. I do not say this to point fingers. The responsibility to act is ours. We're not here to manage decline. We're not here to defend the status quo. We are transforming the whole system: generation, fuel, transmission, distribution, metering, finance, and governance. What we inherited is not what we will leave behind. Now, I could have managed energy the way it has always been managed. Rent another engine, patch another cable, get through one more summer, and hand the problem to whoever comes next. That is what was done for decades. I refuse to do it. A crisis is an opportunity to fix what does not work, and we choose to fix it. For the first time in our history, this country has a comprehensive, nationwide plan to modernize how we generate, store, and distribute electricity across the whole archipelago. That plan is not a press release. It is under construction right now. We separated generation from transmission and distribution because that is how serious energy systems around the world are run. Bahamas Grid Company was established to take on New Providence's transmission and distribution, and it has delivered a $130 million foundational upgrade to our grid. That work includes stronger steel poles, larger conductors, modern protection devices, fiber communications, a looped transmission system, and 3 new high-voltage substations. In July, those substations had reached mechanical completion and entered final testing and commissioning. That work produced measurable results. Outage frequency in New Providence fell 45% against the historic average. Outage duration fell 35%, including during major weather events. On ordinary days, close to half on both those measures. Smart devices prevented tens of thousands of interruptions you never experienced because they never happened. Bahamas Grid Company is today a fully Bahamian-led utility under Bahamian management, accountable to this country. That is, as it should be. In 2025, The foundational work was associated with a 45% reduction in outage frequency and a 35% reduction in outage duration compared with historical averages. Bahamas Grid Company is today a fully Bahamian-led utility under Bahamian management, accountable to this country. That is, as it should be. Those gains are real, but the outages Bahamians are experiencing now are also real. The lesson is not that the earlier work failed. The lesson is that the upgrade is not yet complete, that reliability has not improved evenly in every community, and that an old and overstressed system can still lose ground when demand rises or critical equipment fails. That is why our plan reaches beyond the grid. At BPL, the work has been just as hard and far less visible. Generators that were unused or idle have been brought back online. A rotor replaced, a major overhaul completed, turbochargers rebuilt, alternators repaired, engines returned to service, one after another this year, each adding to the margin between you and a load shedding schedule. We executed a fuel hedge in December, 2.5 million barrels, a full year of protection, so a war on the other side of the world does not impact your light bill the way it would have if we had not executed the hedge. And the equity rate adjustment saved consumers $11.5 million last year. 1 in 5 residential customers paid no base rate charge at all. We signed agreements to bring liquefied natural gas into this country, a cleaner and cheaper fuel than the heavy oil we have burnt for generations. We have 23 microgrid and solar projects in development across the Family Islands, close to 200 megawatts of new generation with Bahamian companies as partners on almost every project. The world has noticed. Moody's upgraded our credit outlook twice in the span of 1 year, after not doing so in nearly 2 decades, and cited our energy reform as one of the major reasons. That is how a crisis becomes an opportunity. We stopped spending only to survive the next emergency and started investing to prevent the next emergency. BPL will continue restoring dependable generation while moving from rented temporary units to permanent efficient capacity. Critical overhauls must be completed. Maintenance must be planned from reliable asset data. BPL must integrate and expand battery storage systems, and rental generation must be phased out only when replacement capacity is tested and ready. BGC must complete and test the foundational grid work. The new substations must be commissioned. The transmission loop, switching capacity, protection systems, and control technology must be completed. Weak feeders must be rebuilt, and grid readiness work must keep pace with new solar and generation projects. A power plant cannot help a customer if the grid cannot deliver the power. On generation, capacity is returning now. Blue Hills GT2, out since the spring, is coming back. The battery storage system that shaves our evening peak returns to service. 2 Clifton Pier engines are scheduled to be back before the end of September. The Blue Hills turbine under major inspection returns in the first quarter of next year. In January, we began phasing out 40 megawatts of rented generation because permanent capacity will have replaced it. On the network, the substation equipment, switchgear, and high voltage assets that failed this summer are being replaced, not patched. Remote monitoring goes live at Clifton Pier this year and Blue Hills next, so faults are diagnosed by data rather than discovered by darkness. On fuel, the first phase of liquefied natural gas comes online this year, scaling to 190 megawatts of gas-fired capacity by late 2027, with new pipelines replacing a pipeline more than 40 years old. The combined cycle plants at Blue Hills will be commissioned during 2027 and 2028. We will be able to produce power at a fraction of today's fuel cost. My fellow Bahamians, new engines, cables, transformers, solar and battery equipment alone will not save a company that is not run properly. And I will not stand here and ask you for patience while ignoring what needs fixing on the inside. Last year, BPL spent approximately $20 million on overtime, despite the fact all transmission and distribution work is the responsibility of BGC. In a single 12-month period, 3 employees in one department received more than $600,000 in overtime between them. One record shows an individual claiming 18 hours on Christmas Day, then 24 hours each of the next 3 days that followed. 90 hours across 4 consecutive days. The overwhelming majority of BPL's workers are decent, skilled Bahamians who keep our lights on and go out in storms when the rest of us are told to stay inside. They have my respect and my thanks. This is not about them. This is about a system that permitted this type of abuse. A failure of management, of controls, of oversight going back many years and across administrations. It is not credible that a person works 24 hours straight, 3 days running, and does safe work. It is not fair to the ratepayer who funds every dollar. It is not fair to the honest worker whose profession is tarnished by it. A new overtime policy is in force. Planned overtime is capped. Any technical worker whose overtime exceeds 30% of base salary triggers a review by the division head and the executive management team and is to be reported to the board. Repeat patterns are flagged. We will apply this consistently and fairly, and we have engaged the unions because their members deserve a properly run company as much as any customer does. Every dollar recovered from waste is a dollar available for a spare part, a repair crew, new equipment, and training. We will put more information and more energy choices in the hands of customers. Advanced meters can help identify outages faster and show households when and how they use electricity. We will accelerate modern metering so that Bahamians can manage consumption instead of waiting until the end of the month to be surprised by a bill. And we will create greater flexibility for residential solar. In consultation with IRCA, BPL consumer groups, and Bahamian solar installers, we will review the rules governing residential renewable energy systems. Our objective is clear: simpler applications, predictable approval times, wider access to bidirectional meters, fair treatment of the energy a household produces, and appropriate credit for excess power supplied to the grid. My fellow Bahamians, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that every light will stay on tomorrow. What I will tell you is this: I know the scale of what we are dealing with. I have known it since the day I took office, and have never once described it as smaller than it is. There will be setbacks. There will be equipment failures. There may be temporary disruption as old infrastructure is removed and new systems are connected. And as we build a more resilient system to survive and operate in the climate realities we face every year. But difficulty is not a reason to retreat. It is a reason to work harder, move faster, and communicate more honestly. I'm not here to manage this. I'm here to fix it. I said in Parliament that we will not accept the status quo. I meant it then, and I mean it now. Righting the ship requires more than engines and cable. It requires a utility properly governed, staffed, financed, and held to account. It requires management that answers for performance. That work is underway. It will not be comfortable, and it will not always be popular, but it's the only route to a country where the power is stable, reliable, and inexpensive. My fellow Bahamians, you returned this government to office, and you did not do so to keep things exactly as they were. You gave us a mandate to build on the progress and to confront the problems that others found too difficult or too costly to solve. You elected us to build a grid that can carry the country we are becoming, to build a generation we own instead of a generation we rent, to build a utility that serves you rather than simply trying to survive, an energy system on which a young Bahamian can open a business, a mother can keep the fridge running, an elder person can sleep through a summer night. This is the hardest infrastructure challenge our country has faced in 50 years of independence. It sat for decades because leaving it was easier. We took it on because you deserve a government prepared to do the difficult thing rather than the convenient one. We will finish what we started, not because it will be easy, but because the alternative is another generation of Bahamians living in the dark and being told to wait. You have waited long enough. What we inherited is not what we will leave behind. Thank you, good night, and may God bless you and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Prime Minister Philip Davis, in a national address to the nation just moments ago, you saw it, just wrapped up just about a minute or so ago. The focus really BPL and the hard work and lift required to modernize a system that is more than 50 years old. I'll tell you this, many have been saying this is what BPL needed to do and must do throughout this process, because that makes it even more vexing with the power outages and no one saying anything. The only thing that's happening are some videos on social media, upgrades on stories. The Prime Minister, even though people may have been waiting to hear certain words uttered by him and they were not uttered, you know why I think he won? At least he got people listening and saying, okay, we hear you, but we had enough of this, but we hear you. He was measured, he was calm, and he told you without mincing anything or making the picture any prettier. He told the nation what is on the table, what the reality is. BPL, you have dropped the ball all summer long and have not done that. That is why people are angry tonight. Because this unprecedented amount of power outages that the nation has been experiencing, and you all have continued to walk around in circles like you're all playing musical chairs, nobody can come out and speak and say exactly that. Do better. Now, I want to bring in the Hot Topics panel again. I want to know, gentlemen, Leslie Miller, Howard Johnson, were you surprised? The Prime Minister's tone, as I said, very measured. I think what the nation needed in the middle of this unprecedented heat and power outages, they needed that measured tone to kind of just kind of soothe them a little bit. But did he need to say anything else? Did he miss out on anything? Was it something you perhaps wanted to hear and you did not? Howard, I think you're muted. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've always said from day one, I appreciated that the current Prime Minister, Philip Brave Davis, has decided to take on the big task with this particular legacy issue, and trying to execute a comprehensive national overhaul of the Bahamas' electricity system and grid is no small task, no small undertaking. And I will give him his kudos for that. He is correct when he says that what he is undertaking in this regard has not been done or attempted by any former prime minister or any administration before him. I completely agree, and he has my respect and thanks for that. Nevertheless, the PLP administration has not been in power since May 12th of 2026. They came to power on September 16th of 2021, after almost 6 years or going on 6 years. And I wrote my notes down. We can't continue blaming outages on legacy infrastructure, end-of-life grid components, and record-breaking summer heat. We have to let that go now. While those things are real and tangible, what citizens still expect from a government that they elected and re-elected is that we would have proactive seasonal load planning and grid maintenance, comprehensive grid maintenance over the course of those 6 years that this government has been in power. That is the minimal expectation. Manage the loads during these peak seasons like summer and stuff. That should go without saying. That's number one. And then number two, what I expected from him was that there would be a change. I expected for him to call for changes at BPL, use that political power and that political muscle to call for changes in BPL's management and board where necessary, number one. And number two, finally, I expected for him to also reassign the Minister of Energy. See, because this ain't about who's your friend and who you like as an MP and all these other things. It is clear, and I believe that Jobette Colby Davis deserves to remain in the cabinet of the Bahamas, albeit in another position. But it is now high time for there to be a structural pivot and a change in the overall operational direction for energy management in the Bahamas.
Thank you.
There needs to be a complete policy shift.
Leslie, your thoughts?
No, the Prime Minister's speech was very measured. He gave an overall view as to what has happened to BC over the last 50 years. I agree that some of the equipment was outdated. One section of BC at Clifton was put in the 60s, but that was upgraded a few years ago by one of the local companies here, but putting some small engines in that same compartment out there at Clifton. I thought, that he mentioned the overtime that took place. He mentioned the 3 men that take home over $600,000. We now have to wait and see what's going to happen. At the end of the day, to suit the mindset of the average Bahamian, if they are satisfied with what has transpired in his speech that he just gave a few minutes ago. I still believe that some changes is necessary for BEC to have the capacity to service the Bahamian people in a way that they can appreciate lower costs and, more important, consistent electricity to their homes and businesses, and the churches too included. So I would hope that other measures will take place more sooner than later to help to negate what is happening now to us and what has happened over the last 30 to 45 days in New Providence as well as some of the family islands. There's a lot of work to be done. I believe changes need to be made to bring BEC salaries and the overtime in line with the rest of the public service. I have a report here that we did.
I see we have to wrap up.
And, it's just changes need to take place. With the greatest respect, some changes need to take place.
Well, the Prime Minister said there was an employee that claimed overtime on Christmas Day of 18 hours. Christmas Day is 12 hours, but 18 hours they worked.
Yeah.
And the following day, Boxing Day, that employee worked 24 hours.
Despicable.
How do you feel? How do you feel? Do you feel as though there needs to be a shake-up at BPL
Has to be.
because of that mess right there that we just talked about
Absolutely.
of $20,000+ a month?
Yes.
Change must come.
Yes.
I want to know what you feel. We'll pick this spot up right here tomorrow night, right here on Beyond the Headlines. Leslie Miller, Howard Johnson, thank you both very much for being here this evening. Of course, to all of you for tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been awesome having you here. Look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow evening. For the entire Beyond the Headlines team, I'm Shanique Miller. Make it a great evening, everyone.